Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with German-based jazz trumpeter Samuel Blaser. He was born and raised in a lesser-known but no less significant jazz metropolis known as Le Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland, which was for a time home to expatriate American Sidney Bechet and Clarke. Since his 2007 debut as a leader, he has been quite active and has spent considerable time living in New York City as a truly international musician, exploring his very unique and evolving jazz sound. So please get to know Samuel and dig this interview, my friends. Samuel, thank you for taking a minute out. It's an honor to speak with you.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
It's an honor.
Absolutely. So the one thing I notice about you is that you are a constant person that's involved with different projects. And that's awesome. And it seems to kind of be the way with jazz, but it seems more specifically with you. So looking at, your latest album with Jerry Hemingway, with your trio, talk to me about your latest albums and kind of your philosophy on new releases.
I mean, I've been... how can I say that? Well, first of all, I will talk about my latest recording. It's actually a tribute to the blues, and it's called Early in the Morning. It features Jerry Hemingway on drums, Russ Lossing on keyboards. He's playing 6 different keyboards. Masaka Maguchi on bass. I have 2 guests on this recording, Wallace Ronnie on trumpet and Oliver Lake on alto saxophone. And that recording was recorded last January, not this January 2017. Oh, well, I'm getting confused now. Yes, 2017. And will be released in September. It's always a long process to record and then shop. Shop for a label if a musician doesn't have one. In my case, I had one, but I was looking for a new home. Which will be Out Here Music in Belgium. I've been collaborating with a producer in New York named Robert Sidney, and we've been working together since 2011. I think we've been recording a new album every 2 years, and we decided to work on thematic. So it gives me like a project to work on for a year, make some research, and get to know like a new style or a new composer, something, So the first album was an album around the music of Monteverdi, so Baroque music. And then we moved on to Guillaume de Machaut, like early medieval music. 3 years ago, we did a tribute to Jimmy Giuffre, and this one is a tribute to the blues. And the next one, we are already talking about the next one, will be a tribute to the music of Jelly Roll Morton. So it's always interesting for me to do that kind of work because I'm learning about a new subject, and it's exciting. So that's a little bit about the history of this new recording.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that gives me a well-rounded view of how you approach projects and what you're doing. That's fascinating. So you're an international kind of cat. You were born and raised in Switzerland. You're in Berlin. You spent some time in New York. So let's talk about the beginnings of your life. You come from the town that was home to expatriates from America, Sidney Bechet and Clarke. Talk to me about your childhood and how you got fascinated with jazz.
Well, there's always the same legend that is coming back, but I have to tell it to you because it's a fun one. I wanted to start trombone at age 2. And I guess I saw like marching bands walking in my street, and I got fascinated by the trombone. Except that at age 2, I couldn't really express myself, so my parents didn't know what I wanted to play. But I had to wait age 9 to start studying the trombone, and I was very lucky to grow up in a town where culture was very important. For example, the town, which is called Chaux-de-Fonds, built a theater and a musical before even having running water. It was a watch center of Switzerland, still is kind of today, but most of the factories moved or got bought by other groups, international groups, but they wanted to have kind of like a little Paris. And the conservatory in my hometown was amazing because it was kind of very small. It's a town with 40,000 people living there, but the conservatory was very international, and everybody in the faculty was playing classical music, of course, Baroque music and jazz. So I got to be introduced to every style at a very early age, and I had the chance to join the big band. I was the youngest. I was maybe 12 or 13, and we all learned how to play jazz and how to improvise, and that's where I actually blew my first solos. So that was an amazing town to grow up in. Actually, I was fortunate, I must say.
Tell me about some of the early jazz recordings or music that you listened to that influenced you.
My mother had, my parents actually, but my mother was really into music. My father too, but less into jazz, I would say. But she had a few cassettes, one Ray Charles, one cassette by Louis Armstrong, and one by Harry Belafonte. So those three cassettes were my entry to the world of jazz, and then I got introduced to more jazz music. So Count Basie came in, Miles, of course, and then J.J. Johnson, Albert Mangelsdorf, and I think those were my first recording. And then the first recordings I bought were Kind of Blue by Miles, Something Else, Cannonball Adderley, and I think I bought a Curtis Fuller. I don't remember the title, but he's on Train Tracks on the cover. So those were my first jazz recordings.
So you talked about wanting to start on the trombone so early. Would you say that it was written in the stars very early on that you were going to become a professional musician?
I guess so, because I used to tell my mother when I was a kid that my dream was to travel and get around and play music. So I always wanted to do that, and I would never want to change actually today, because it's so amazing to be on the road and meet so many people and play with so many great human beings and share what I love to do with the audience.
Yeah, living your dream is the key, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by the trombone, and especially when it's live. I think about all the instruments that are a part of a jazz collective, and the trombone's one of those things where you can stop where you want, you can pull it in, you go out. It's like there's kind of a free rein that goes into it. What intrigues you the most about this instrument?
The thing that I really dig about the trombone is the fact that it's very close to the human voice. So I have the feeling that I can actually keep talking with the instrument, like if I was now talking to you. This is great for me. And the other thing is we have a slide, so we are getting more agile with years, I think, and there are so many great players out there that can play the trombone like a saxophone. But what I really dig is actually go with the nature of the instrument, like playing glissandos and playing slower movements. And so we have like a different kind of vibe. Like if we have a trumpet and an alto saxophone, then the trombone will be very unique with those characteristics actually. And that's what I like to explore, of going for velocity and yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're very unique in the world of jazz because you get into the problem when you start labeling things. But I will throw out some things that have been said about you being in the avant-garde realm, free jazz. There's a sound that you go for that's quite unique. So my question to you is this: from your early days of taking trombone lessons in Switzerland with Raymond Draz, all the way to now, you've obviously learned and grown and come into your own voice. How did you evolve yourself to this current sound that you have?
Well, actually, things changed when I moved to New York in 2006, and I got to meet Scott Dubois, Gerald Cleaver, Thomas Morgan, and I realized that there were other ways to play jazz, actually. So, and that's how I actually got into more experimental, I would say, or improv or avant-garde jazz. But it's funny because today I'm trying to move back because I realized that going to that niche, it's of course amazing and it's great because it's really rewarding. But I realized that the audience for that music is getting smaller and smaller every day. I'm trying to move back to my roots a little bit, so that's why I'm doing the blues album. Of course, it's still spiced with what I learned over the years, and so it's still avant-garde. But we can really hear the blues feeling, and I'm hoping to do the same thing with the Jelly Roll Morton album. And I'm actually building right now a tribute to the Jamaican trombonist Don Drummond. So I'm building a ska project. So I'm trying to open windows a little bit and keep the horizon wide. Because I mean, all those styles, I love all those styles too. So I like to be flexible.
So since 2007, as your debut as a leader, you've done a lot of work all the way into today. We're going on 11 plus years now. How do you feel? How do you feel about your career? How do you feel about your evolution and your walk in jazz?
Well, I'm pretty proud of it, I must say. I mean, I've been working really hard every day, practicing the instrument, of course, but also networking and booking my groups and keep my groups on the road. It's been hard work, but I still see a lot of work ahead because I haven't played in Amsterdam, for example, which is like a major city for jazz in Europe. I haven't played much in Scandinavia, so there are so many territories where I haven't played much, and where I would love to present my music. So there's a lot of work, but musically, I'm pretty happy about what I've done over those 10 years, and I tried over those 10 years to also build relationships and keep performing with the same person so I could build a family, and it feels like it now. Like, for example, Russ Lossing, I've been playing with Russ since 2011, Jerry's almost the same years, Mark Ducray since 2009. So it's nice to see how the music is evolving with those guys.
Absolutely.
So it feels good, yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's one thing to learn as a musician from being on stage and then being in the classroom, but you also learn a lot from seeing others perform. What jazz shows have you seen live that have left a really deep impression on you?
A good question, because I haven't seen a jazz show for a long time now. Because what I'm going for now is in Berlin, for example, I'm going to the opera much more and going to hear the Berlin feel, because it's so amazing to have that orchestra here. And when I'm home, I'm not going out much because I have a family here. So but if I think about jazz, well, Slan Hampton in many years ago, it was a dream to see him. And I got to see him in Switzerland, and he was so kind to come to speak to me, and we had a lovely exchange, and I must say that my eyes were sparkling. I was so impressed by meeting him. But other than that, I cannot think about anything right now. It will probably come up after.
Yeah, it always does. It always does. Let me ask you this. Why do you love jazz?
Because it's so spontaneous, and so it's swinging, and I can dance. I think that's why I love jazz, actually. With loving it. So it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. So I have one more question. This might be a hard one, but I want to know this. Everyone has a perception of you. Your family, your friends, your fans, but you know yourself the best. Who do you think you are?
Wow, that's a hard one. I'm someone passionate. I really love to get into things when I'm getting fascinated by a subject, and I'm someone that is impatient. I have a character of being like pretty. We say that in French. We say entier, which is like entire. So it goes into one direction. And I'm someone kind of shy, which is surprising. But on stage it's okay. But when I have to speak to an audience of 40, 50 people, which I did last week, I'm getting super shy, and I'm super nervous. I think that's a few things that I can say about myself.
Cool. That's perfect. Samuel, thank you for taking a minute out to talk to me about your career, about your latest projects, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Berlin, Switzerland, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Samuel for his graciousness, his music, and his time. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.